So welcome back to my channel. This is Gamer Dom and this is my ramblings on the week. So the big news obviously this week was the new patch 9.17.1 came into play, and it was a pretty massive patch. Let's have a look at some of the stuff that was brought in. So it was a pretty big patch all in all. You had changes to the game features themselves, so graphics, sounds of it. You had some modes removed. Vehicle comparison tool was changed. You had better things about performance of the, so how many shots you've taken, what damage you've taken, that kind of stuff is improved on through this patch. Lots of really good stuff. Some of the things like what damage you've received and what kind of shell type, which previously you could only get with a mod, now is freely available through the game. So that's all really good and exciting. Lots and lots of changes. All the changes to the stronghold mode, talked about that in earlier rambles. So basically they're trying to make strongholds a bit more sort of accessible, I guess, in that you can play on it now as a legionnaire, which you couldn't previously, and in the sort of ones where the higher ranking ones where you could previously get pillaged by all the good clans who went around killing all the small not so good clans. That's been stopped now because it's randomly appointed, so you can't just pick on people, which is kind of cool. Lots of new mini maps, look at that, or lots of changes to those. So basically this was a process they started a little while ago in terms of making the mini maps much clearer to read. But really it was the vehicle changes in this patch more than anything else. It was definitely the German patch. So you had all the changes to the heavy tanks at the German tech tree, the new Mausen, the VK101P, the new Panzerkampfwagen 7 at tier 10. So all those changes there, but then also all these HD tanks were reworked. Look at all these tanks, masses of them. New super test vehicles, so these will be coming soon. That's the Sandbox 81, which is the Swedish tier 8 TD. Jag Tiger H, which is a tier 8, I think it's a tier 8 if I remember rightly, German Jag Tiger obviously. The T44 85M, T44 100M, Tiger 2 Henshaw, so that's another premium, what we think is a premium tank. So they're all being super tested, and then masses of changes to the tanks themselves. Centurions got faster, so did the VK4202 again. The Panther had changes, the Tiger 1, the Panther, the Tiger 2, the Kunststeyr Waffelträger finally has some speed, so well, at least it it's all relative. It can move now, whereas it couldn't before. The grill got a big nerf. Big nerf, changed, lost a lot of its reload time, 16.5 seconds to 18 seconds. Gun depression went from -8 to -9, lost reverse speed from 20 to 15, and the horsepower of the engine overall was from 900 to 850, so that slows it down, and the shell velocity went down. Basically, from what I understand, they were a bit disturbed that the grill was being used like some glorified medium with a big boomstick. So they were trying to make it much more like a TD again, which I can sort of see. So I won't go through all these changes, you can look at them to your leisure, but there's tons and tons and tons of changes. Nashorn gets an increase in penetration from 171 to 194. That's an interesting change. The mouse had loads of positive buffs to it. E50 likewise, E75, like I say, it was a German patch, this one. So many German vehicles were improved. The Panzer IV Schnellturn, which is just a horrible tank. The Panther M10, well, it's probably a lot better now. Panther M10, which is a tank I bought years ago, and I can't even remember playing, but I had a game with that today and got an ace tanker in it. It's kind of fun now. Indian Panzer, the Leopard, VK, all these German tanks got buffs. T34 85M, and then of course the big slow stupid American TDs, the T28, the T95 and the T28 prototype, all got speed increases. So suddenly they can, well, I was driving the T28 earlier and it can now do 20 odd kph, which is just extraordinary. Suddenly it feels like it's actually involved in the game, even though it's only another 4 kph faster than it was. It just makes such a difference. The guys who loved running around in their E5s, or what, the T110 E5s with a super thick frontal armour that nobody could pen, well, I'm afraid that's gone now. The Commander's Cupola is now penetratable, which is kind of necessary, I think, and also some armour behind the drive wheel is now penetratable, which is good. Type 5 Heavy had some, well, in fact, both the Japanese super heavy tier 9 and tier 10s can now use the 15 centimeter derp gun on them. They also had increase in armouring, although I see people already moaning that it wasn't thick enough now. So masses and masses of changes there, changes to radios. So it was a really big patch, and yeah, I think it's great. I mean, I personally think it's great that Wargaming continue to improve this game. They can continue to look at the stats and see what needs changing. And I know we can all argue and say, oh, such and such a tank doesn't need it, or this tank really needs it. But they look at the numbers. They look across the millions of players they have, and they look at the stats, and they look at how tanks are performing. And if they think they're not performing well, they give them a boost. If they're overperforming, they'll give them a nerf. You know, it's kind of we have to trust them. At the end of the day, they are the arbitrators of our game, and if they well, their game even, if they get it wrong, then we'll stop playing, won't we? Simple as that. Anyway, so Wargaming have given us an update on the Sandbox, and some sort of feedback on the changes that they instigated in the Sandbox. So again, caveat and reminder with the Sandbox. Sandbox was their sort of pre-test server, so it's a place where they could try out completely radical new things that may or may not get into the game in some form or another by the time it actually comes to fruition. There were a lot of interesting changes. It was two-phase test this time round. So the first one was around penetration and accuracy changes, and the second one to artillery. So they released an update based around excuse me, based around what they found from the tests. And the first, which I think is great, because of the first Sandbox, I don't think they even reported back on it. So thumbs up, at least you fed back on it this time. So phase 1 around accuracy, basically they're explaining that this was to try and stop those sort of unbelievable shots from firing halfway across the board or across the map and still hitting and doing maximum damage. So accuracy was severely nerfed on the Sandbox, and meant that it was really hard to hit at the range. So it says they won't be implementing this change though. They basically found that while it did reduce those unbelievable shots, it also had such big impact to other areas that they've decided that isn't the way they want to go. So they're going to look at other ways of trying to change that up. So good on them. That's the whole point of the Sandbox, right? You try things out. If it doesn't work or doesn't get the right effect, then you don't use it, don't bring it into the game. So good. Again, thumbs up. Damage fall off. So this again was the fact that AP and APCR shells lost a lot of their penetration over range. So currently you lose penetration over 50 meters, is it? And they were basically going to reduce it down to 25 meters. The only problem with this is it wasn't going to affect heat shells. So heat shells, because they would use a different mechanics, were not going to change. So suddenly heat shells got even more powerful than they already are. So again, they've decided that this isn't something they're going to implement, which again, thumbs up. I think the two of them were worth trying out, but in my mind did not do what they were supposed to do, and actually were too much of a penalty for players who just wanted to play the game properly and enjoy it. And this whole basis of the Sandbox around damage and penetration was to stop the situation that happens where heavy tanks sit at the back of the the map and fire at range. They shouldn't be doing that, should be getting up and brawling. However, the problem is armour isn't terribly effective anymore in World of Tanks, and actually firing an aimed shot with a decent crew and a decent gun was pretty effective, even if it wasn't supposed to be at range. So they're going to try and find other ways of changing that, so good on them. Other thing that they probably will be instigating is changes. Well, they're looking at, so one of the other things they changed was scaling the 120mm gun damage to the 122 damage. So at the moment they're pretty much the same amount of damage, and obviously they're different size shells, so they were looking to change that. Again, they've decided that this just creates a little bit too many complications for the game, mainly because of the effect it has on British TDs that primarily use HESH and also some of those other big caliber guns, so that's not coming in. So basically phase 1, none of what they tested appears to be coming in the form that they instigated, which, you know, again, this is what the Sandbox was about. It was about testing stuff out. So good. Phase 2 was around artillery. This got everyone very excited. So this was all if you recall, the principle was to reduce or stop artillery one-shotting tier 10 heavies and things at range. So they're basically, to make it simple, the artillery's splash radius was increased, the impact of their shell, the damage caused by the shells were reduced, and the penetration of the shells were reduced, and they took away everything apart from HE. So they couldn't fire AP or APCR. No, they don't fire APCR. They couldn't fire heat or AP anymore. So HE or a premium type of HE, that was the only thing they could use. Excuse me. The trade-off was that because of this increased splash area, they could stun vehicles in those areas, and that got a big thumb up. It got a big thumbs up from me too. I really thought it was good. It made artillery worth playing because if you played them right, they supported the team, and effectively, if you stunned a tank and then that tank was shot, it was a bit like when you disable a tank and you get half the benefits, half the damage, half the credits that the guy who shot it would have got. So, you know, so it was worthwhile. I did think they needed to tweak the value of what you got for being artillery, because it didn't seem to be quite right somehow. I had a stunning game with in a back chat artillery, and well, had a very good game back chat artillery, and I didn't earn hardly anything. Excuse me, this coffee's driving me mad. So anyway, bottom line is this got a big thumbs up from most players. So they're going to try it again. They're going to expand it now. Previously you could only do this in tier 10s. Now they're going to expand that out in the Sandbox to tier 8s. So 8s, 9s and 10 artillery. So we'll see what the effect is there. So good on them. Good thing. The other thing in the second Sandbox was multi-use consumables. So this was the fact that, you know, currently if you use your repair kit or your fire extinguisher, what have you, it's a one-shot wonder. You use it, it's gone. So they were talking about using repair kits, med kits and fire extinguishers multiple times. So once you'd used it, it would recharge, a bit like if you've played World of Warships, the smoke screen. You use it once and then it takes a while to recharge, and then it's available again to be used another time. This would be the same principle with this, and the large and the automatic fire extinguishers and so forth would basically have a shorter reload compared to the normal ones. And again, this got big thumbs up, and part of the reason why they needed these multi-use consumables, because it's a way of unstunning your crew. So if you get hit by artillery and you're in the open, you can't get moving again very quickly because it affects your speed, forgets everything else. You could hit the med kit and it would repair all your crews, unstun them, and you can get away. But of course then if you then got tracked a bit further on, you had no repair kit anymore. Sorry, if your gunner got knocked out, you had no repair med kit anymore. So that was the reason for doing this multi-use, and I think that's again got big thumbs up, and it looks like something they're going to introduce into the game. So they're going to continue the test of that. So good, excellent. Next thing is around 3 arty per side, no more than 3 artillery per team. Again, big thumbs up from most people. Most people like me, little old gamer Dom, thought actually 3's too many. I think it should just be 2. But now one of the downsides they notice here is the fact that it means queuing times for artillery go up considerably. But you know, I think not many players would be unhappy if it took a little bit longer to get into an artillery game if you're playing artillery, if it meant the next time you went out in your big heavy stupid Japanese super beast tank, you weren't facing 4, 5 artillery, you only had 3 maximum. So that's what they're thinking. So again, that seems to be a good thing, and I think they are probably going to introduce that. Again, they're continuing to test, so good, very, very good. So they're going to start another sandbox test, which begins on the 27th of February, which will be including more vehicles, and also gives us a chance to try out the effect of the artillery at lower tier artillery. So I think that's good, fantastic. And I think, you know, credit where credit's due. The sandbox was designed to test things out. Some things they're clearly not going to use, some things they're clearly continuing to investigate and potentially could come into the game. And thumbs up from me, because I think the more the game is improved, the better it is, the more fun it is, and the more likelihood we're going to carry on playing it, enjoying it. So good. So reported on Rita's status blog, a new Tier 6 American Premium is being tested. This is it, the Thunderbolt 7. Looks kind of sexy, doesn't it? It's a variant of the Easy 8, Tier 6 as I say. You know, it's an Easy 8. It's nothing particularly spectacular in terms of what it can do. Has a 76mm gun, I believe, 128mm of penetration, 150 damage. Hull armor is 123 on the front and 115 on the turret, which looks pretty well protected. That gun mantle, I'm trying to move it like I would a normal tank. Dingo. The gun mantle looks pretty good there, and the sloping of the armor's not too bad. So yeah, could be an interesting gun. Reload of 3.6, accuracy is not great, 0.38, aim time 2.1 is okay, but you know, with a decent crew I suppose you can improve that. It does look fairly sexy though as a tank. I quite like the look of it. Looks like that spaced armor going all the way around the turret there. It does, doesn't it? Let's have a look, see if we can see that a bit better. Yeah, look, there's an armor plate there on the side. Presumably got one on the other side too. Yeah, there we go. Plus a helmet. So yeah, looks like a big old slab of armor on the front. Nice gun mantle there, and these armor plates on the cheeks of the turret. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting, very interesting vehicle. Quite a good looking one. So we'll see what transpires with that as it goes through super test. Watch this space. So the big hoo-ha there was, well, a week or so ago now, when I was in the US, was around super testing of Tier 5 light tanks. Again, for those who can't remember, the whole idea behind basically what's going on with light tanks is that Wargaming are looking to extend light tanks to Tier 10 instead of Tier 8 as they are now, and remove their +2 matchmaking. So light tanks will fight at the tier they are regardless. So a Tier 5 light will fight as a Tier 5 tank, no longer a Tier 6 tank. So sorry, +3 matchmaking, not +2. Everything has +2 apart from preferentials. So they basically, as a result of the changes to light tanks, they're nerfing most of the light tanks to mean that when they are top tier, they aren't just completely overpowered. Because you imagine a light tank that was say a Tier 5 light tank, it's designed to be fighting against at least Tier 6s, so therefore it has the equipment to be able to do that to some degree. Now clearly it's a scout, so it has no armour and has better mobility and all that good stuff, But you know, it can, and because it will have to fight against those sort of tanks on a very, well, always a tier 6 and above, and it could be a tier 8. So if you're removing that, and the maximum tier 5 for that example we'll ever face is a tier 7, it doesn't need the same kind of mechanics, same kind of equipment that it does now. So bottom line is they're making a lot of changes to all the lights through or looking at making a whole load of light changes, and they're super testing all of these at the moment. And they announced the tier 5 changes the other week, and Shock Horror Pro, everyone's favourite little French super stealth tank, the AMX ELC, it appeared that they had removed the 90mm gun that everybody loves. Now that 90mm gun is what makes these tanks stand out from all the other light tanks. It's slow loading, it's got terrible aim time, and the accuracy is pretty horrible, but it's great fun because you can whiz around in your little ELC, drive up behind somebody, derp them, and then get the heck out of Dodge. And it's one of the things that makes certain light tanks different and therefore interesting to play. And one of the things I've been a bit concerned about is that all the changes to the light tanks in some ways is making them all a bit too bland. You know, they're taking the T-49's derp gun away, for instance, and leaving it with a 90mm. Well, so how does that stand out now from an RU-251, for instance? The derp gun gave it something different, a different characteristics, but they're removing it. So there was a lot of hoo-ha about this, but actually then it transpired the 90mm is staying on the ELC. But interesting way they're counteracting is that currently with the 90mm on the ELC, it can't traverse its turret 100%. It can only do an arc to each side, a bit like a TD, slightly more than that, but just a little bit like that. So that's what will remain with the ELC when the tiers change. Excuse me. But they will also offer you a 75mm with a turret that traverses 360 degrees. So that's an interesting option. So you can have a light tank with a gun that's less effective, but traverses all the way around. So yeah. So there you go. That's the stats. That's the stats with the 75mm, and that's the stats with the 90mm. Pretty much the same all the way around. The gun on the 75mm has 100mm of penetration, which actually isn't too bad. 120 with its premium round, 36 with its HE, 110 average damage. The 90mm has 120 pen, so only 20 more. 170 with its, I think it's heat it fires, I can't remember, which is pretty darn good, and 240. So it's really whether you want to get an extra 20mm and more than double the alpha in exchange for a turret that rotates completely. Dispersion is actually worse. Oof. 75mm has a dispersion of 0.4, whereas the 90 is 0.38. Wow. Aiming time, however, is better on the 75. It's 2.3 as opposed to 2.9. And reload time is considerably better, 4.8 on the 75 as opposed to 14 on the 90mm. So, anyway, interesting. The 90mm is not going away, is the bottom line. So, shout hurrah from the rooftops. While we're on the topic of tier 5 changes, light tanks, this is some of the other stuff that we saw being super tested. So the M7, which is currently an American tier 5 medium tank, is being moved to being a light tank apparently. So that's one of the things they're testing at the moment. I don't know the tank well enough to know how the changes are here. I think there's a nerf to the gun basically from what I can see. 75mm gun, penetration is 92 with 110 damage, rate of fire of 13 rounds per minute. The Chaffee, again, slight nerfing of the gun, I believe. 96 penetration. How does that compare with the? Yeah, it's a slightly 4 more than the M7. 96 penetration, 110 damage, 15 rounds per minute, so much higher rate of fire. You'll see we've talked about the T50, which is currently a tier 4 Russian tank, I believe, is being moved up to tier 5 as part of these changes that they're looking at, which is interesting. Still only got the 45mm gun, which means its penetration is 85, damage is only 70, but look at that rate of fire, 31 rounds per minute, 2000 DPM. I mean, you're going to have to fire a premium though to do anything with that. Then the Leopard, VK1602 Leopard. Again, don't know how this is changing particularly. You've got 30mm gun, so that's a low caliber rapid fire, but it does have a penetration of 95, but damage of only 30. So that's some of the other tests they're looking at, or changes they're looking at in the super test at the moment. I'm sure we will get a chance to play with all these new light tanks in the test server. Well, I hope so, before they're brought into the game, because I, for one, am very interested to see what they do. But the M7 becoming a light tank, and a bit more nerfing to various guns of the other tanks at tier 5 is basically how the light tanks are being worked out, if and when this change happens. So a fairly quick update from me in terms of things that have been going on in World of Tanks this week. Let me know what you think about the new patch. I'd love to know. Very interested to see what people are thinking about it. Watching people moan about this thing. This is the Object 25.2, the Defender, this version is. People getting absolutely aerated and hot under the collar about it. People saying, oh, it's OP, it's ridiculous, blah blah blah, it's pay to win. Most of whom haven't driven it and haven't even fought against it. They're just taking the word of a few reviewers. I did a video on this yesterday or today, whenever, and in my humble opinion, this is a good tank. It's not an OP tank. It's a very good tank, and if you play it well and if you're a good player, then you'll do very well in it. But then that's the case with any good tank. It will generate great credits, that's for sure, if you do well in it. But it's not OP, and yet it's people just mouthing off in chats, and oh, it's so depressing. People are such obnoxious gits, aren't they? Just some of the comments. I've seen people moaning about the new patch, absolutely going on and on and on about. There was some guy on a Facebook group that I'm in, going on and on and on about how his Type 5 wasn't invincible anymore from the front, because he'd read all the reviews about how it was being buffed armor states. Well, I'm afraid, stupid, you still have to drive it properly. People seem to think their favourite tank is suddenly going to become impregnable to all kinds of fire. What kind of game would that be if that was the case? If it was completely impregnable, if every tank was incapable of being penetrated from the front, then that would be no fun at all. And people will say, oh, this Object 252 can't be penetrated in front. Yes, it can. Yes, it can. The commander's hatch is on the top here, and the lower plate are all perfectly penetratable. Lower plate if you've got a good enough gun. But this thing is slow loading. You can get around the flank of it and kill it. If you look at my video, I'm a Joe average player, slightly above Joe average player, and I didn't absolutely stomp all over people in this. Had some good games, had some crap games, just like any other tank. Anyway, let me know what you think about the patch. I'd love to know. Put it down in the comments down below, and anything else in the video, just give me a shout. What you think is interesting, what's not, what are you excited about, what are you not. In the meantime, enjoy your games, have fun. Remember, it is just a game, it's not for real, and enjoy yourselves, have fun. And I'll see you again soon. This is Gamer Dom, out.